you recorded? That's great. Okay, recorded. So that's Raheel. Now we'll talk about Mudassar, if you can wave too.
Everyone.
He's also a co-founder of DevNation, and he has several experiences related to entrepreneurship and artificial intelligence. And he and Raheel co-authored Explain AI together. And Mudassar also went to NYU Shanghai for data science. And lastly, our third speaker here is Hamd Tahir. You can wave too. Great. He's an entrepreneur at DevNation, and he has a lot of experience in data science, software development, bioinformatics, and so much more. So you guys should have a lot of questions. Alongside Raheel and Mudassar, he's also went to NYU Shanghai, and he studied data science and biology, and he also studied liberal arts. So he's got a lot on his plate right there. Anyway, enough of me talking for the last 15 minutes. Whenever you guys are ready, you can take it away with your presentation.
Yeah, sounds great. So yeah, so I'll give you my background, and that led me to start DevNation. So I was born and raised in Pakistan, in Lahore. So for my undergraduate studies, I got the option to go to NYU and like New York or Shanghai. I chose Shanghai because I feel like it was cool at the time, different experience, China. So I went to China, and then I got to experience both East and West, see how the world works in China and in the US as well. So, and then since I come from like a family of entrepreneurs, so I was really into like startups early on. So in my first year, in my freshman year, I co-founded my company. Like really fun experience. We launched an application, but we had a really hard time landing our clients. So, and then that experience taught me that I love to like design or build products. And that experience was the reason that when in my senior year, there's a company called Le Brand. It's a really big branding company in China. When they were looking to hire someone to lead their AI team in Shanghai, that a person can launch an AI which can make humans more creative. I was the one they approached, and I helped them launch an application which they use right now. And then that app has helped them made millions of dollars. And so like, yeah, that was my like starting point as a programmer. And I love like programming because this is something that's so empowering, because I can literally like launch any app in a week, and anything which can have a really huge impact on the lives of so many people. So yeah, like a few things which I want to like share with you all, that the world has changed a lot in the last like few years. Like now, like there is no need to have experience of 20-30 years to launch any startup or any web application or to lead a team. Now, like if anyone with the right in-demand hard and soft skills can literally like launch the next Facebook if you want, right? Or launch any organization that can impact the lives of people around. So yeah, that is like so empowering in a way that anyone can launch any stuff. So, and so like this definition is also aligns with that people are there, and in Pakistan or in Africa or in any other developing countries, and then they want to do good for society, but they don't have the right skills. So we want to empower them, upskill them so they can like learn skills and then launch web applications or mobile applications or startups which can provide value to people around. So that's the background, and that's my motivation behind starting DevNation. Yeah, so now like Hamd or Raheel, you can take the floor and then you can introduce yourself, and then we can talk about other things afterwards. Hamd, we can't hear you right now.
We can't really hear you, Hamd. Yeah.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Perfect. All right. So yeah, I am Hamd, and I was also born in Lahore, just like Melissa. Even though Raheel and Mudassir went to the same high school, I met those guys while I was in high school, once or twice. Then we all went to the same university. I went to NYU Shanghai just like them. I always wanted to do biology. I wanted to be a researcher, go into my PhD, and do some stem cell research or genetics. But then later on, as I was taking my graduate courses during my undergrad, uh, I just got introduced into bioinformatics, which is technically a lot of data science and statistics in biology. And that's when I fell in love with data, and I just like pivoted to data science. And then I graduated. I worked for a biotech company for a while. We did work on genetics and cancer gene profiling, trying to figure out what kind of genes are cause cancer, what kind of genes are more correlated based on the data. Uh, then moving on, I got accepted in PwC. PwC, if you guys know, it's one of the big four consultancy firms. I got into their digital services department, where I got into as a data science consultant and a software developer. And then there, it's all history. We got a lot of projects coming in, and since it's services, it's a lot of big projects from the government side, where we had to build their applications and give them insights into data. So I managed that project with around like 200 developers. It was like an $18 million project, and it was all remote in the pandemic era. So that's kind of like the background of how I got to where I am. And now talking about Dev Nation. So when I was at PwC during my time there, I saw that people were hiring a lot of developers, from India, from the UAE, from even Nepal, but they were not hiring people from Pakistan. So I saw that there was an issue with that. A lot of people, when they were learning development, they were not learning the latest stacks, React, Node.js. People were still like, basing things on Laravel, PHP, the old stacks, like 10, 20 years ago. So that's where I saw that there's a need. We have to upskill like the youth of Pakistan and the Asia region to learn all these latest technologies in web development, and also teach them about data science. And that's when I like joined forces with these guys and created Dev Nation. So that's my story, my journey. And I think Raheel can talk about himself now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hamd. I don't like talking about myself, but if you insist, I shall. But I'm very happy to be here. Just like these people, I come from Pakistan, which is kind of like a developing nation, has a very sort of like a weird, controversial reputation around the world. But trust me, it has a lot of potential. And I think they've covered up the initial parts of the conversations regarding the upbringing and everything, which is very similar to what they've had. But I think because my father is an entrepreneur, I've been exposed to this entire world of entrepreneur for a very long time. So I think that was kind of like a natural inclination towards doing something that I'm doing right now. But one of the most important things I think I realized very early on in my career, especially when I was working on MLtrons, which was my first startup right after college, was that the fact that motivation is extremely important, and unless and until you're not passionate about something, you won't be able to do it. So with Dev Nation, the core idea was empowerment. You have all these people that come from underrepresented backgrounds. They're really talented, but not everyone is lucky enough to get that level of exposure that is required for someone to become successful. And I'm pretty sure you guys must relate with this because, when you're in high school or when you're setting off to college, there are people who are naturally disadvantaged, right? There are some people who come from rich families, some people come from poor families, and kind of like that societal sort of aspect determines your level of success, which is inherently wrong, which it should not be the case. So Dev Nation very much is the brainchild of that idea about empowerment and bringing democratization or bringing a level playing field for people who have the talent, but apparently they're disadvantaged in the society because society is kind of like not really perfect. And edtech is a space that is extremely hard. So if you guys really want to work on problems, I would highly suggest that, who cares about e-commerce or stuff like that, right? The next big thing is not going to come from e-commerce, it's going to come from healthcare, it's going to come from education, it's going to might come from finance, because that also propels the idea of inclusivity. So I think the idea about working on DevNation came from the fact that we were working on a very hard problem, and this is a kind of problem where it's not like a really fancy problem, but it actually impacts generations to come. So bringing on all of these elements, it kind of like fit, and then very interestingly, we took a very different approach. In Pakistan, we don't have a credit system. In the US, you guys have the credit system, you have loans, you have mortgages and everything, right? So in Pakistan, there's seriously nothing like that, which is kind of like hilarious, right? It's 21st century. And we decided that, we really wanted to empower these kids, and a financial burden was a huge kind of like a roadblock whenever these people wanted to do something. So we launched this pay now, study now, pay later, which is kind of like our version of income share agreement, which says that, all right, if you can't really pay, if you're talented enough, if you're passionate enough, we'll help you out, we'll teach you, we'll give you the skills, and then we'll help you land a job. All you have to do is pay us a little bit upfront so that we can cover up our cost, and then the rest of the money should be tied to your success. And that actually changes the dynamics a lot. Number one, it changes the fact that the burden is on the education system. So for example, if you guys go attend a university, there's no guarantee that you're going to land a job, right? There are a lot of people who go to university, but they still end up not doing really fancy jobs. And it's not the burden on the education institution. Their job is to just give you the skills and then let you free to figure out the career services on your own. But we really wanted to take that with us. So that is when we decided that, we really wanted to create a financial model that works for everyone. And that is when, we came up with the income share agreement model for the Pakistani market. People called us stupid, people still do. And they're going to keep us calling us stupid to try to implement this idea in a Pakistani market. But I think in the long run, if the students win, we win. And there's no misalignment there. So that is kind of like my motivation behind why I'm working on DevNation, why I pretty much care about waking up in the morning, because I would love to sleep till 12, but there are certain things that make me wake up early. But anyways, that is part of life, I guess. But moving the conversation forward, I have a few questions that I thought were important to ponder on, so I would forward them to Mudassir and Hamd. That is the operational challenge of running a startup. It's not easy. It's a very hard feat, but hard things matters. I would like to pose this question to Mudassir and Hamd, both of them. That please, can you share more about the operational challenges that you felt would not arise? You thought were easier enough, but when you started facing them, they became a huge fucking problem. I'm sorry about the language though, but I think we all are grown-ups here and we can take such small little words. But anyway, so Mudassir and Hamd, who would like to go first about sharing your operational challenges so far?
Yeah, I'll go first. So I thought that if we have an idea, right, and we just need to build a solution around it, right, given that we know what the problem is, and then that's all. We'll magically have people signing up for that platform or that solution, and then we'll have a company. But that's not how things work. So understanding what people are going through, and then how you can motivate them to join your platform so you can help them upskill themselves. It's a really, really hard problem, because life is not straightforward. There's randomness everywhere. Everyone is busy with stuff, with family and everything else, right? So how will you convince that person that, yep, if you want to move forward in your life, you have to upskill yourself, and then you have to take some time out of the entire busy schedule and then take this online course that we offer you for free even, right? That is a really, really hard thing right now to figure out, how do we bring those people who we can help transform themselves to just come on the platform and then move on. So that is what is a really, really hard thing right now, which I'm facing in my department. Yeah, so Hamd, I would love to hear what
I think
you are going through.
you hit the nail on the head. I think a startup is like just like a machine. And I originally thought, if you get the best teachers, if you get the students who need the guidance, if you have the platform and structure, and the program timeline, and if you have employers lined up to actually hire those students after they graduate, everything's going to fall in place. You have everything, every small part of the machinery, and you just like connect them together, and it's going to free flow smoothly. But that doesn't happen. You have to, always oil it up, always try to come in and like manually push the buttons and make sure that people are studying properly, people are connecting to the employers properly, and the whole pipeline of the whole system, you have to be on top of it day in, day out. Even if you like stop like 1 minute or 1 hour, things break, and then people are clueless. You have to be on top of it. So this is one thing I learned pretty quickly, because I didn't have an entrepreneurial background, unlike these guys. I work more in consulting, and in consulting, everybody's on top of their game. They know everything. There's no slackers, no one's lazy. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, and when it comes to the end user who's just like a student, students can get lazy sometimes. Employers can get bored. Many things can break in the pipeline. So I think that's something that I learned, that you have to make sure, like, even if you develop the system, you have to be on top of it all the time.
Yeah, I
I
feel
would like
like
to add
go on, go on.
just a quick addition on what Ham said. There's one thing that I think is extremely important for young people, especially if they're in college or in their high school, which is discipline. I think as long as you have the discipline to sit down, write down your goals, really work towards them, in the long run you'll always win. In the short run you might not be able to get that level of satisfaction, because it's more about doing small little things every single day, and then they compound over time. So I think the challenge here is, for everyone involved, is to do something persistently and constantly improve by getting feedback or data, and then eventually getting the results.
Yeah, like adding on to like Ricky, like so discipline is really extremely important, right? To achieve anything in your life for sure, right? And there's one thing else which I've seen in the last like 2 3 years, that so programming is a tool, right? The purpose is it's a mean towards an end, and the end is that you can use this tool to solve a problem, right? And the problem for whom? For people, right? So you need to all understand, to know like how do we understand people more, right? You have to like develop empathy for people so you can understand their pain points more. And then once you have a clear idea of what the pain points are, then you will be able to like use programming or any other technology to solve that problem. So that is one thing that I feel like it's really, really important, even though like in any problem you will have a issue solving it, but think about that, like you have to like be more empathetic, trying to understand that person more, right? Because if you can have this habit of like understanding people, then I'm pretty sure you will be a really, really good problem solver, and then you will be able to like use whatsoever tools you have in your arsenal to solve that problem.
So that's a very interesting point, Mudasar. So to carry on the conversation here, you talked about problem solving, right? And running a startup, doing a job or something, or studying for your LSATs or your SATs and applying for colleges. It's kind of like a problem solving in a sense. So what sort of like in the past few months we have seen that we've been putting down fires all over, but slowly and steadily we are moving towards a more scientific approach that includes experimentation, that includes writing down assumptions and testing them out, and constantly using a scientific approach. So I would love for you guys to shed a little bit more light on your learnings or your experiences on scientific learning that these kids can take away, because that is the core of being a very good problem solver.
Yeah, absolutely. So like human beings have evolved a lot in the last 20 years, right? So like we now have access to so much data and so much information, which is supposed to help us make better decisions, right? but sometimes it can also make our lives even worse because you have so many options to choose from, and it's really, really hard to like do programming or like go for other domains or not, right? So it's really, really hard, right? So I feel like it's a uh, proven, I would say, like there's a paper that says that like human brain is wired in a way that it's really, really hard for us to hold more than 5 things in our memory at the same time. So, and that is why like every MCQ will always have only five options, right? Because if you have 10 options, it's really, really hard to like choose or make decision, right? And that is a reason. So like scientific approach, the idea is that you write things down, you organize all the information, right? So it's easier for you to compare different options and choose the option that really fits with your goals, than like mentally comparing different options. That is really, really hard because like we can't hold more than 5 things in a memory at the same time. So having some organization, uh, writing things down properly, that like I have these career paths or these universities or these different domains to choose from, and then organizing the data to support these options as well will be really, really helpful. uh, like for like to make any decision, like it can be university decision, it can be decision about what to study at a university, so anything else. Yeah.
I think a pros and the cons list also works for simple decisions. But it's actually very true that when you're making a decision at the startup, there's so many different factors that you really have to optimize for just a few. And I really found it's kind of like something that I'm getting better at, which is building a very systematic, a very disciplined approach to decision making. Because the biggest hurdle I think in life is depending on. So I would highly suggest people read Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman if you haven't read it before. And he talks about the notion of system one and system two, which is basically you think with your emotions versus you think with facts and data. And naturally, it's much more easier to think with emotions because that is where the availability bias lies. That is where you can actually use logic, but bringing logic and data together, that is the main key for effective decision making, and that is what we've employed at DevNation as well. In the past couple of months, we are trying to include as much data as possible and make our decisions or run experiments based on the data that we're getting, based on the user feedback that we're getting. So I think that is kind of like a systematic approach that saves you, or at least gives you the justifications of the decisions that you've made. And eventually, after 4 or 5 years, when you look back, you know why you made those decisions. You don't regret those decisions per se, because you only regret when you make decisions by heart. Sometimes you require that, but most of the time you don't. So I think one of the biggest key takeaways for you guys, because you guys are really young, is to really think about the decisions that you make and really use the frameworks that are out there, uh, and utilize them to your own advantage and use them to take a decision based on considering all the factors and making sure that the decision you're taking, you're fine with them, because you guys have to live with it. And I think Hamd, because Hamd comes from a consulting background, and he has been taught in consulting to be a really disciplined operator. And that is kind of one of the abilities that you require to be a good entrepreneur, is the idea of constantly executing and being a very good sort of an operational person. So I think Hamd, would you like to share more about your ability to wake up 8 a.m. every single day and do
Yeah,
tasks every single day for a very long time?
it's depressing. That's what it is. But it's no, I'm just kidding. So no, it's fine. It has a lot of discipline in it. When you start, so the thing is, uh, as people, we always think about ourselves as the heroes of our stories. We are the guy, we are the main guy of our own story. But as we grow older, I think it's better to kind of look at it as a bigger story than yours. So for me, it's something like that. So when I'm part of a company, I'm part of an organization, I stop thinking, I do think about myself, my paycheck or like my benefits and everything. But at the end of the day, what wakes me up at 8 a.m. is that I have to wake up and work for my company. And that's something that I'm building. That's my child. That all my passion is going towards that. So that's the first thing that makes me wake up. And sometimes I also, sometimes I don't wake up because it's hard. But other times I try to wake up and I give it my best. There were times during the transition period when I was at PwC that I would wake up at 8 a.m. and work on PwC, like the consulting job, which is highly demanding. You're managing a big project with 200 plus developers, and then at the same time working at DevNation. So I had no time at all. I was like sleep 3 hours a day for months, and it would just like drain me out. But what made me like work in like two places at the same time was the whole idea of having a proper priority for all the things that you're trying to do, all the tasks that you have, list them down every night before you wake up. List them down. List the tasks that you're going to do like right off the bat, like the easy ones. A lot of the times, you procrastinate on the big tasks, and then what happens is okay, someone texted. All right. So yeah, so let's assume you have 3 or 4 tasks like you have to do in a day. One of them is a big task that's going to take a lot of time, and the rest of the like 3 or 4 are just small tasks, like half an hour tasks. What people normally do, they just spend the whole time procrastinating on the bigger task, and they end up doing none of them by the end of the day. So what I would do, I would just like get the small task out of the way in the first 2 hours, and then think about the bigger task. And then I look at myself, and I'm like, oh, today my goal was to do 5 tasks, and I did 4 out of 5. So I already did like 90% of the task today. So that makes me kind of feel better. So this is like my approach when it comes to the daily operational side of my own things. Melissa, you want to add something? Raheel, Alvira, and Josh, all of you guys, anyone can
Yeah,
add.
I,
I
I
have a
want to, I
question.
want, no,
Yeah.
I have to disagree with Hamd on one thing first, and then you can ask your question, Mudassir.
Okay.
It's the idea about prioritizing bigger tasks versus smaller tasks. What I've found to be more successful for me, at least,
Mhm.
is working first thing in the morning on difficult tasks, because those are the tasks that require the most amount of energy from my side. Those small little tasks, I know I'm going to get them done in the next 30, 40 minutes. I understand that it gives me a sense of accomplishment, but at the end of the day, it's more about the impact they're going to have on the overall business. Difficult tasks have a much bigger impact. So I think that is kind of like where I operate very differently than you. I try to get difficult tasks out of the way first, because the smaller task would literally take 30, 40 minutes to get done.
Yeah, but I'm assuming you have a lot of grit and hard work and patience that once you get the
100%.
difficult, once you're done with the bigger task, then then you are able to go and not slack, not be lazy about
No,
the other task.
I would actually recommend everyone to read this book, Deep Work, which actually talks about how you guys need to sit down for 3, 4 hours without any sort of distraction on the social media. And that is when you'll be able to do the maximum amount of work. It has worked for me. I think you guys should read the book, try to follow it. And I think your life will become much more productive. Yeah, Mudassir, go ahead.
Yeah, like I have a question. Like you mentioned that, like you can, that right now, like you have a job and then you also work on a startup, right? And
Mhm.
then you only get like 3, 4 hours every single day to sleep, right? Do you think the reason you are able to like work 20 hours a day is because you have finally found something that really motivates you or inspires you or you are super passionate about?
Yeah,
Is
definitely.
this the reason why?
Like passion, you can't do anything with passion. Why am I like trying to work at DevNation now? Because after a time, consulting gets boring. You get the same kind of work. There's no value addition in the world. It's just like you do work, you get money. Like the company gets money, that's it. There's no value that you're creating in the world. So that's the passion for me that keeps me going and working on DevNation, because I truly believe that if I am here giving my like 110% to my company and it's creating some direct value, that's the best thing for me. Why did I not go into academia in the first place? Is because it's too much time. You work on a drug or you work on a thing, it has to get patented, and then it has to get 5 years of approvals, and then it gets into the market, and then by that time I'm old. Like the value generation is not that fast. So I'm all about the value. So that's the, I think, patience, yeah, comes with passion. If you don't have the passion, you can't wait. You'll be like, okay, I'm not invested enough in this thing. Why should I keep doing it? Why should I burn myself out for this?
But then that actually takes me to another question that I would like to ask
Yeah.
you and Mudassar, which is the idea about delayed gratification versus instant gratification, right?
Yeah,
So
true.
the thing that I get from your conversation was that you are more likely to opt for instant gratification because that actually tells you that you've done something.
No,
But
it's not. It's
what
not as
what
simple
what
as
what
simple.
Mudassar talks about is a little bit
Mhm.
more towards the delayed gratification. So I don't know. I would let you guys to decide on this. But
Yeah. Let me
what
comment
is
on it.
something that you would suggest the kids that we have today with us to follow? Is it instant versus delayed?
So,
I think, yeah, go
yeah, go
on.
ahead. Okay.
So like for me, for example, like if I am a painter and I like painting, right, that is something that gives me joy, right? And maybe I have no idea how to monetize that skill. I think it's fine for me because I have found something that motivates me, inspires me, gives me joy. So like finding what you like what's your passion, right? And that passion can change, like it can be a different passion after 10 years, right? But finding your thing is the most important thing. Like I feel like that's more important than some reward that I might get or not get out of it. So I feel like that is the most important thing. Like, yeah, gratification, it can be instant, it can be delayed. For me, like that doesn't matter. Finding your own thing is, and as soon as possible in your life, that is the most important thing. Like I've seen people like they find their passion or the thing they like when they are in their 50s, and then they are totally burned out working for a company at a job like they don't like enjoy, right? And it's really really hard for them to live in that state. So like finding your real thing, like that motivates you, is the most important thing, I guess, like more important than the gratitude.
No, I think it makes sense. Like you have things that you want to do, and you want to find, like, the whole journey of life is just to find what you want to do for the rest of your life. It's like 60% of your time on Earth to do
Yeah,
what you
it's
want to
like,
do. Yeah.
it's it's kind of true, but when I was in high school, right, um, everyone dreams about applying to colleges. You have the SATs, then you have the college essays, then you have the recommendations. One thing that you learn from this entire process, everything takes time, right? So I can't really be like, I just got into like the first year of high school, so I'm going to take my stats and I'm going to take my all everything and I'm going to go to Harvard tomorrow. That's not going to work, right? You really have to push yourself. You really have to sit down, work for it, and eventually you are going to get there. So the idea about trying to find what you're passionate about, it takes a little bit time. Time is required. It's not going to be instant. That is what the thing is, because sometimes you can confuse your passion with a fling, right? But really finding what you're passionate about might take time.
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. Yeah, it comes
I feel
to the
like
point.
the only
Yeah, go ahead.
way like to find what you like is by trying different stuff. So for example, if you go to a bakery and then like you have 10 different types of brownies, right? And then like the only way to find out what is your favorite one is by trying all 10 brownies. So that is how the life works. Like, so like college or high school is the time where you have to try different stuff out, right? And then eventually you will be able to compare things as well, because then you will have data, your emotions to support one thing over another. And that's how you move towards finding your thing. So programming can be your thing, can be not, right? And then there is only one way to find out, is by doing it. Like some people will hate programming, someone will like it, but that is the only way to find out if you want to move forward with this or not, right? So that is the only way.
Yeah, I think the moral of the story is exposure matters, and you learn by doing. I think it's one of the most important key takeaways, at least, because a lot of people are afraid to try new things out. And about startup is all about trying new things. We're literally trying new things every single day. Something doesn't really work, we are sitting down and we're like, why the hell this is not working, right? What experiment can we run, or what can we implement to figure out how this is going to work? And I think when you're working on hard problems, that is the fun of it. And I think when you're able to crack that, or you're able to solve that problem, the level of gratification that you get is unparalleled to what you would have gotten if you could have just left or tried something new out. But I think that makes a lot of sense. I will agree with you guys, and I think we can.
Yeah.
If you have any more questions, we can wrap it up here, or otherwise, if you guys have any more questions, we'd love to take more.
So we have a workshop coming up where you will be building a portfolio. So I think like answering this question, is programming your passion or not, right? If you guys can use this workshop somehow to collect data on yourself and then see if this is something you like or not like, if you can do that, then I feel like you will walk away with something meaningful from this entire event.
Yeah, I tried to find the easiest yet a little bit more appealing thing that I could find, that because I have no idea what is the level of expertise that I can expect, but I'll try to be I'll try to make it as simple as I can. If you guys don't understand anything, I think you can Google it or simply ask what I think. This is the most easiest thing that I could find that we could achieve in the time that we have left.
Yeah, so just one point I want to bring up here is going off of, I think, what Mudassar was talking about, finding the exposure. This program that we're doing right here, this Corporate Connect program, the point of this is to connect you guys, your high schoolers, with a variety of different aspects of STEM. So whether that be stuff in science, our earlier events, we talked about remote sensing in flooded areas. That's a completely different side of computer science than these guys work with. So our entire program at Coco here is trying to give you guys exposure in a lot of different fields of computer science. Like programming isn't just this one monolith. It's a whole spectrum of different fields. It's a diaspora, for lack of a better word. So if you guys stick with us for a bunch of other events that we're going to be doing soon, you can get a lot of exposure, as Master was talking about, to a bunch of different fields in computer science. So stay tuned. Now you guys have an activity you want to run, right? Real quick. Yeah.
So it's not going to be a very quick activity. It's more like a interactive. I think it's a live coding session that I'm going to do. So Let me just share my screen if I can.
Yeah, you should have permission to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. So I have this small little thing that I've built, which is basically this, right? So the idea behind web development or building web application is two things, right? They need to be appealing and they need to be functional, right? So everyone tries to, in today's digital age, slowly and steadily, I believe that we're moving towards the world of portfolio, because if you don't have that, how would you share the things that you're working on with the world, right? So portfolio is a very nice place. So let's try to analyze what we have built here so far, right? So we have.
Is this you, Raheel?
I wish. It's something that I've picked off of Freepik.com, which is a very legal way of finding stock images. And I would highly recommend anyone to, if you're looking for images, try this website out. It's amazing. You'll be able to get stock images that you can use without paying any royalties to people. So this is a sample project that we have, and this is what we're going to build. I'm assuming that you guys have zero knowledge about this entire the entire coding aspect. So I'm going to take you one step at a time. So let's just quickly try to analyze what we have here. This is like a single page website. This has nothing else. It has the name here, which is the logo section of it. Then you have the nav bar, in which you have multiple different links to multiple different sections within your website. Then you have an introduction. Then you might have an introduction video, and if you can see, when we click on it, when we put our mouse on it, it actually changes color. So it kind of has that level of interactivity in it as well. On top, you have your phone number. It also has that level of hover effect. In the bottom, you have the footer. In the bottom, you have the footer. And with that footer, you basically, just have allowed the social media post. So this is kind of like a very simple, very basic sort of a page, but this will take us a little bit of 15-20 minutes to actually get this done. So I'm pretty sure you guys are already familiar with a little bit of coding, I'm assuming. So this is what I have set up for myself. This is basically a code editor. If no one knows about this, this is where you actually write code and execute code, and then you're able to have a look at it in your browser. So this is kind of like an HTML document. So this is a website that is not using advanced technologies. It's using the building blocks of web development, which are basically two. So number one is the HTML. HTML defines the entire structure of this web page. So everything that you see is written or distributed into multiple different sections is done with the help of HTML. On the other hand, the styling that you can see, the colors and the interaction, that is done by another supporting technology called CSS, which is Cascading Style Sheets. And that is where you kind of like paint the entire web page. I like to think of it, whenever I think about HTML and CSS, I like to think of it as a house. So when you're building a house, the structure is kind of like the concrete structure is the HTML part, the blueprint of that entire house. And then the paint, the wallpapers, the color of the door is basically the CSS part of it. And then if you want to take one step forward, then you have the lights in there. And when you click on the light, the bulb opens up. That is what the role of JavaScript is, right? So JavaScript adds the level of interactivity into your web application. So I have this with me. It's an index.html. So .html file actually represents the HTML file. This is where I am going to define this entire structure of my of this web page that I have. Okay, and this is the empty page that I currently am rendering from this link. This link HTML will be connected with this .css. .css stands for Cascading Style Sheet, and this is kind of like the file for the CSS technology. And we'll connect this with HTML. I'm going to show you how we can do that. So if I open up this, if I go to my browser, if I click inspect, I'll be opened up with the developer tools. Okay, so every single website is built up of HTML and CSS. Okay, so every single structure, even if I go here and if I click inspect, you'll see a very similar sort of like a structure, just a little bit complicated, but it's all about the structure that we build by using HTML. And if you can see a very similar sort of like a structure, it all starts with tags. So you have tags to define what sort of elements do you want in the page. So for example, in this page, this tag is the body tag. So it has the head tag, it has the body tag, and within body tags, we have multiple different tags. Like, if I use this, I have this A tag. A tag does something. I have a list tag. The list tag does something. So HTML comprises of using tags to build the structure of your specific website. And then by calling on to those specific tags, we will be styling them via CSS. Okay. So trying to keep it very, very simple. So let's go back and let's try to define what the structure is. So, okay. So number one, we have to tell, whenever we are starting an HTML document, right? So the number one thing that we do is basically define the structure of the web page. So we start off by telling it that this is a doc type and the doc type is HTML. This is only done for HTML. And then we open up the structure of the entire HTML document, and we do that by opening up the HTML tag. Once we're done with HTML tag, everything that needs to be rendered is going to go in these two tags. Okay, this is how the browser is going to know that this is an HTML document, and whatever content goes in there will be rendered onto the web page. Okay, so number one part that we have in our web page is the head part. So this head defines what goes on to the head, the meta tag, the title that you can see here comes under the head tag. All the links to the CSS pages, all the meta information that is required by the Google search engine goes into the head. Head might not be seen on the web page. This is the part of the body, but head is important for providing information to the search engine and everything. Okay, so far so clear. Do you guys have any questions? Can we move forward? Okay, let's move forward. Okay, so we're done with this HTML. In the head, okay, we define what the title is. And the title is, for example, sample portfolio. And when I save this, it's already active. And when I go here and I click here, so now you see it changed. So whenever I use the index tag, sorry, the title tag, okay. So whenever I have the title tag, this is used to reference the information that goes on top of the bar, okay, on top of the tab. So if I want to change this, I can actually change this as well. Sample portfolio right here. So now it's going to change this. Okay, so this free vector, whenever you see something written on top of a tab, you now know that this is the title tag. Okay, so then you have a couple of more information that we have to connect this style sheet, and we do that by using the link tag. In the link tag, we give it a rel, which is basically telling it that this is a style sheet, and then this is a type of text/CSS, and where is this file located? This file is basically located in style.css, and this is the pathway that we give. And it's as simple as that. So you don't have to learn all these, this entire syntax, because this entire syntax is easily available on the web. All you have to do is understand that, this is a link tag, and all you have to change is the link. Wherever the CSS file in this document is, that is where you're going to add the .css. Now we need two more things that we're going to utilize from outside. Number one is font awesome, because we also need a little bit, if you look at the website, we also need like this play sign, we need this Facebook, Twitter, these logos. And for these logos, we're going to use font awesome. And so this is the link that I already have taken out. So I'm going to use that link. You can easily get this link off if you write font awesome, right? So you can easily, whatever fonts that you want, you can go to this website and you can download as many fonts as you want. So these are all the icons. You can click on them, and I'll show you how to use them in the portfolio website as well. But this is the website that I think needs to be your friend. Okay, so now we're done with this. We just have one more thing to do. If by default I write something on the page, right, and I exit the head tag, now I'm no longer in the head. Now I need to get into the body. So body is where everything that I write within body will be rendered onto this page. Okay, so that is where we have to write all the stuff. And then let's talk about what should we write. We can simply write a heading. Okay, so I can write H1. H1 is another tag that is heading number 1. This is the largest sort of heading, and I write this is a portfolio. And if I write this down, you'll see that this renders onto the page. Okay, so this is one of the tags for HTML that allows me to write a heading. Okay, so but I don't really like this I don't really like this font. So I can also change the fonts. What I can do is I can go on to Google Font and simply select the font that I like. So how do I do that? It's very simple. So I like Montserrat. So I click on this and I basically select, whatever design do I like. I want to like this one. I want to get this one. I want to get the medium one. And I also want to get the bold one. Okay, so now it has given me all the things that I need to connect my HTML with Google Fonts. So I simply copy this. I come back to my head and I simply paste this. And now what I've done with this line is that I've connected my HTML document with this Google font. And once I have to use it, I'm going to add this line of code in my CSS file. So what I can do is, so I can go here, I can go back. And now, so the CSS works in a very different way. In CSS, you have to select tags. And what are tags? This head is a tag, body is a tag, H1 is a tag. In this, we're going to get the body tag and we're going to give it some sort of the font family, for example. So we write body and then we use these two curly braces. And in this, we write the CSS. And how do we write the CSS? It's very simple as that. So we write whatever the property is, and then whatever the value of the property is going, and we simply save it. And then we come back to this, and now we see that the font has been changed. So number one, we connected Google API or Google Fonts with our HTML document, and then we use CSS to change the font family or the font type in the entire body of the HTML document, right? So now coming back to the main thing. So now what we have to do is, now we have to define the structure. So in the header, that is going to be our main class. Okay, so we're going to create a div. So what exactly is a div? So everything that you see on this page is a division. Okay, so in your house, you have a division, you have a kitchen. Within the kitchen, you have another division for the stove. Then in the kitchen, you have another division for the fridge. So divisions are basically dividers of places where you keep where you define a certain sort of element within that sort of small little section. So I'm going to call this entire thing a header. So I'm going to go there, I'm going to remove this. I'm going to use this div tag, and I'm going to give this a class of header. Class is basically used for classification, right? I have to identify this div, and this div belongs to the class of header, right? So if I use my CSS, I can simply or if I have two different divs, how do I identify which div am I referring to, right? So I use this class or these identifiers to figure out which div am I referring to in my CSS document, okay? So I have a class of header. This is where the entire code is going to go, okay? Within the header, I have my nav bar. In my nav bar, I have my logo, I have my menu, and then I have my contact info, okay? So there's another division, which is what? Which is a nav bar, and that is okay, we're good with this. And then we have another division, which is what? Which is a menu. And then we have another division, which is what? A contact info. Okay, now we're good with this. Nothing is going to show because, you know, div is basically a semantic tag. It's just used to define multiple different sections. It's not kind of like an element that will be rendered onto the web page. So far, it's very simple. Now we move on to writing the content in there, right? So in this, we have a logo. Logo is either an image or a link that you can click to get onto this website. So in this case, this is not an image. In this case, it is a link. And for the link, what we can do is we can simply click on this and then we can get somewhere, right? So for the links, we use the A tag. Oh, sorry. Kind of like an anchor tag. So it starts with A, and then it has an attribute that we can define, which is the link. If we click on this A tag, we're going to go somewhere. In this case, we're not going to go anywhere. So I'm going to leave this as hash. So if I click on this, nothing is going to happen. And then between these two tags, I can write whatever I want to write. So I can write my portfolio. And if I save this, and if I come here, I can see my portfolio. Now this looks like a link. If I click here, something happens, right? So I could not, when I had the H1 tag, I could not really click on it. But for my portfolio, because it's an A tag, which is usually used for links, I can click on it. It has that small little line on it, which we'll remove in the future. Okay, so now we're done with this one. In the menu, if you look at the menu, in the menu, you have a list. And this is a list of unordered items. This is not ordered. It doesn't really have an order to it. It's not like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just it's an unordered list. So within the menu, we're going to call or use a tag called unordered list, and that is defined by UL. UL stands for unordered list. And within UL, you have multiple different list items. In this case, we have number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 list items. Okay. And list items are also tags. So we're going to start the tag by this crocodile sign. We're going to write LI. And this in this LI, we're going to give it the information or the name of what the list item stands for. So in this case, for example, it stands for home. But list item is also a link. And we just learned that whenever we have to write links, we use the A tag. So within the list item, we're also going to use a tag. And this A tag is going to have an attribute of the reference, and then it's not going to go anywhere. So, and in this, we're going to write down what it stands for. This stands from home, and then we have an unordered list by the name that has a list item of home. We can simply copy paste this if we want, you know, and just change whatever information that we want. So the second information that we want is about, then we have the resume, then we have the services, then we have the portfolio, and in the last we have the contact. So once we're done with this, we'll see a list getting rendered on our web page. It has no style, but now we're giving it structure so that everything that you see here is showing up on the web page here as well, right? And on the contact part, we simply have, we also have a list. For the first list item, we have the phone number. In the second list item, we have a separator. And in the third list item, we have the email. So by going into the div class of contact info, we can again use a UL, unordered list, and it has 3 list items. And every list item is a link, and this doesn't really go anywhere. So hashtag, and then we also give it a class so that we can identify what it is, because we'll be using it in the future to style it, okay? So this is a phone number, and we can simply give it a phone number. 111-111-1111. And then we can simply copy this. And we can simply copy this like 2 times. Why? Because this is a separator. And this basically third one is the email. So in the separator part, we just simply change the content. And here I can write raheel@thedevnation.com and simple. And now we can actually go back and we can see that we have this entire thing. In the future, we use CSS to remove it, to style it very differently according to what exactly we're looking for, okay? Yeah, so this hashtag means that it doesn't really go anywhere, okay? It's just for telling it that, don't do anything with it. I can write, if I write www.google.com, this is going to basically take me to, href, HTTPS. Well, should go, let's see. It's not going there because I'm in my local host. If it's my local host, it's not supposed to go there. Anyways, once you deploy it, it's going to work. It's not a very big deal. So I'm going to remove this and I'm just going to write, hashtag. So it doesn't really matter. So this is kind of like the link. If you click on this, it's going to go somewhere, okay? So I think I'm done with my first kind of like the nav bar, right? So I have my header. In my header, I have the nav bar, and then I have the menu and I have the contact info. I need to fix one more thing. What I need to fix is I need to get rid of this and I need to create a new div, and I'm going to give it a class of logo. And in that logo, I'm going to add my portfolio link. So, and I think this is good. And now I'm going to take my nav bar class and I'm going to wrap it around my menu and my contact info, so that now I have one specific section, which is the nav bar section, that has my logo, that has my menu, and that has my contact info. And I think now I'm good to go with the nav bar div. Okay, so if I close this down, you'll see this div has 3 pieces of information. One is the logo, menu, and the contact info. Now this is, I think this is good to go. The next thing that we have is, so now we have a banner, which is basically kind of like, it has this image. Then you have this app text in which you have a heading. And within that heading, you have this button in which you have an icon, and then you have this little video. You also have this kind of like design, the line coming up. So we're also going to build that. Okay, and that is, I think that is okay to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new div, and I'm going to give it a class of banner. So now this is this, now what it will contain is basically this area and this area. Okay, so does that make sense for everyone? Okay. In that banner, I'm going to have another div, and I'm going to give it a class of app text. And in this app text, I am going to have an H1 tag because it's a heading. And I'm going to call it, hi, I am Raheel. And I'm going to save it, and I will get this. Sorry. Now, if you look at this design, I really want to change the color of this hi. But in CSS, you have two kinds of elements. Number one is the block element, and the number two is the inline element. So for block elements, if you add two block elements together, they are going to be on two different lines. Okay, but for inline, if you have two tags that are inline tags, they will be side by side. Okay, you suggest it's basic, just have to remember that. And so if I really want to change the color of this, there's another tag that I use, which is a span tag. And that's an inline tag that allows me to color this without changing the entire structure of my H1 heading. So span is very useful when it comes to inline styling. If I just want to change the color or the style of AM without Raheel going to the next line, I'm going to wrap this AM with span tag and then style that specific span tag. Okay, so we're good to go with this. Within the app text, I also have a button, and that button contains this information. Okay, so I am going to have another div, which is going to be given a class of primary button, and I'm going to style it later on. Okay, and then this is going to be given a class, another div, which is going to be given a class of button group. And in that button group, we are going to have another class of play button. And this is where we're going to add our play button. Okay, so these are three different divs that are basically kind of doing the same thing, but we need them for multiple different styling. We're going to style primary in a different way. We're going to style button group in a different way. We're going to style play button in a different way. And then lastly, we have another div, which is given a class of play button inner. Okay, and in this play button inner, we have these two elements, which is number one is basically an icon, and we can give it a class. This is coming from Font Awesome. And next we have a small little span tag that will have some text in it. Watch introduction video. It's as simple as that. Okay, so we're quickly done with this. And then we can move on to, adding a background image that we're going to do in about, later on in the CSS. And once we're done with the banner part, so now I think we're done with the banner part, right? We're just left with two things. Number one, so we're going to create another class really quickly, and we're going to give it a class of social icons. Okay, this is the information that is here below. Okay, this will also have an unordered list, and I'm going to give it about 4 or 5 different, I think, links. Number one is going to be, and there's also going to be an href a tag, and I'm going to give it a class of, I don't care, I don't want to give it a class. And this is it. And this is going to contain an icon. And I can simply choose icon class. This is coming from Font Awesome, and I want the Facebook icon, and this is it. Okay, so I've done this. And now I can simply copy paste this. And I can write Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. So I have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. I think this is more than enough for us. YouTube and, for example, YouTube. Okay, I think this is good. We can have 4. And I think we're done with our basic structure of the CSS side. Okay, now what we can do is we're done with the HTML. Now we'll move on to the CSS side of it, and we are going to start styling it. So number one thing that I have to do is, you can see that there's a lot of spacing here. Let's just remove all the spacing and reset the CSS, right? So we're going to remove all the margins. Okay, we're going to remove all the padding. So margin and padding are basic 2 concepts. You can look it up. I have to speed it up a little bit because we don't have a lot of time. And the box sizing is going to be border box. This actually includes all the widths and all the heights when calculating the new sort of information for our elements. And we're going to move this font family from here, and we can just simply add it here. Okay, so now we're done with guys see my screen now? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we can continue. So once we're done with this, now what we're going to do is we're going to remove this underlining that exists.
1 second. I think your camera is still off though.
Okay, sorry. Here you go. Is it working now?
Yep, so much better.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go live. Just 1 second. I'm just going to click. Okay. So now we're going to remove this underlining. This is actually called text decoration. That is the property that we're going to use. So how do we do that? We're going to first select the A tag. So we want to remove it from all the A tags. And this is how we select it. And we're going to use text decoration to none. So once we do this, it's going to remove all the underlining. Okay, but once I still like hover on it, I want that effect to go as well. So what I can do is I can choose A, and then I can choose a special selector, which is called a pseudo selector. It allows us to add the interaction on top of that A tag. And we want hover to give us text decoration as none as well. Okay, so now we have removed all sort of like interaction from our A tag. Next up, we really want to also remove any sort of the effect that we have on the unordered list, because you were looking at it and it had some bullet points. So what we can do is we can just simply use list styles and we can click none and we're good to go. Okay, everything remains the same so far. Okay, yeah, I think Josh is doing a good job explaining a lot of the concepts that I'm just going over because we are sensitive on time. The next part is basically the header part. The header part is kind of like, just give me 1 second. I just want to port 55001. Okay, so we can actually remove this. So just 1 second. I have to fix a few things. Just give me 1 second, please. I have to also run, I think, also this. Yeah, so I have this opened up as well. So now we have the upper navigation bar. So let's try to fix that now. Okay, this is good. Okay, so now we're going to choose the header. So this header is this entire document. Okay, so I'm going to give it a position of relative. So, and then I'm going to give it a width of 100%. I always want it to be take the entire width that is available to it. And then I'm going to give it a height of 100 VH. 100 VH means that this is going to, the height of this header, which is this entire little div, it's going to be this complete width of the browser. So if I reduce the width of the browser, it's going to still take the same amount of height. So view height is very good for responsive design. And now I really want this header to be filled with this black image. So what I can do is I can go to my style.css and I can add this attribute of background image, and I'll give it a URL, and I'm going to call images, or no, imgs, and I am going to choose bg.jpg. Okay, I'm going to save this and I'm going to get this image. Is that clear? And I also don't want it to repeat itself. So what I can do is, okay, this is good. So what I can do is, I don't want it to repeat. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to click no repeat. And the background size needs to be this entire thing of the entire window size, basically. So I'm going to give it the attribute or the value of cover. And now we have this with us. Okay, everything looks good. So now what next we can do is we can simply, so what we can do simply is now we have to change the design of the nav bar. So we can easily select the nav bar by using the class. So we already gave this nav bar, this div, the class of nav bar. This div is inside the header. And whenever we are using or selecting the class, we always start with a dot, and then we use the name of the class. But for tags that are pre-created by HTML, we simply use the name of the tag. For example, here we do not need to add a dot at the beginning, because that is how we select tags. But for classes, because we define them manually, it's user defined, we have to add the dot at the beginning. Okay. So now we want to get the nav bar from the header. So first we're going to select the header, and from this header, we're going to select the nav bar. And now we want to give it a width of 100% as well. So navbar needs to take all the space it can. The height is going to be about 80 pixels. 80 pixels, it means that all these are pixels, and this is kind of like one of the measurement unit that we use to give it, to style it basically. And then you have display flex. So display flex means that we are going to, right now it's on top of each other, and now we really wanted to have my portfolio here, home here, and the rest of the information here. So we want the information to be represented from left to right instead of top to bottom. So we're going to use display flex, which is another CSS property that allows us to do that. And we're going to align all the items to the center. And once we click that, we can see that things are now centered. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of padding. We really want it to have some distance from the top, and we're going to give it like 20 pixels. And now it's going to be a little bit from the top. Okay, that's good. Once we're done with this, now let's work out the logo side. Okay, so now we're going to choose the logo class, and from that logo, we're going to select the link. And the link is basically the A tag. So first we're going to select this class, and then we're going to select this tag. So we selected the class, and then we're going to select the tag, and now we are in the tag. We don't want it to have any sort of text decoration. So the text decoration part is going to be none. We really want to change the color because I don't see anything right now. I want to change the color of the font to white. And I want to give it a display of block. And I want to increase the font size as well. So I want to increase the font size to 30 pixels because 30 pixels is good. And I want to give it a margin from the left side so that it has some space from the left side basically. And I want to give it like 50 pixels, I think. 50 pixels is good. So now I have a little bit of idea about how my portfolio is going to look like. See, it matches here perfectly. Now I really want to select the menu because I really have to fix the menu real quick. Okay, so now I'm going to select the menu. From the menu, I'm going to select this UL tag. And from this UL tag, I'm going to select each of the list items. So first, I'm going to select the menu class. Then I'm going to select UL. And then I'm going to select the list items. So the list items needs to be, display needs to be in line block. They need to be in line of each other, right? So from left to right. And then I'm going to give it the margin from margin right. They need to have some sort of gap on the right side, and I'm going to give it like 35 pixels. And if you see, there's a gap now because they have a margin from the right. The cursor, it needs to be pointer. It's a very simple sort of thing. And then we're going to align all the items into the center. And now we're good to go, right? So now we have the cursor as the pointer. This is a pointer. This is not a pointer. This is a pointer. And now it's good to go. And now we also have to select each of the link that is in there. So home, about, resume, this is what the A tag is. So how do we select the A tag? I select the menu first, then I select UL, then I select the list item, and then I select the A tag. So what I do is simply menu, I select list item, I select UL, then I select the A tag. I'm going to give it the text decoration to none. I'm going to give it a color of white. Okay, I'm going to give it a font size of 17 pixels, and I'm going to make it a little bit bold by giving a font weight of 500. I can even call it bold, and I'm going to give a little bit of letter spacing of about 1 pixel so that there's some sort of space in the letters. And now I get this, which is perfect here. Okay, I can change that in the future when I add a little bit more distance here. Okay. Next up, we have within the header, we have the contact info. So now how do I select that? First, I select the class of header, and then I select the class of contact info, right? And I want to give it the color of white. and I want to give it the distance from the left side to about 400 pixels so that it goes actually to the very left side of it. And within contact info, I also have a list, right? So I'm going to select that list from contact info, and I'm going to give it a margin of about 41 pixels so that it has a distance between each of the list items as well. And then I am going to select header. I'm going to select the contact info again. I'm going to select the UL, the unordered list, the list items, and I'm going to convert that into, because right now it's from top to bottom, I'm going to convert this into left to right. And how do I do that? By changing the display to inline block. Okay, and now it's going to be left to right. But I also want to change the color of this, right? So simply what do? I select the header, I select the contact info class, then I go into the unordered list, I select the list item, and within the list item, I select the A tag, and I change the color of the A tag to white. I change the font size to about 15 pixels, and I'm going to add a little bit of transition property, which allows it to, animate a little bit for about 0.3 seconds. And this is it, right? Now we're getting very closer to our final, how it's going to look at the final line. But I really want to change this as well. I really want, whenever I put my, cursor over it, it needs to change color. So how do I do that? I'm going to select this property again. I'm going to remove this, and I'm going to add a pseudo class, which is hover, and I'm going to give it a color of red. I don't like really red. I'm going to give it a color of, something very similar. I'm going to give it a color of this. So whenever I do this, this works. Okay. And I think this is more than enough for us. Just one last thing. We can also add a little bit of separator. We can select the separator class, and we can just give it a little bit of distance, right? Because, why not? And we can give it opacity of 30%. And this is good, right? It works for us. Okay, now we're good. We're done with this part, right? So now what we can do is, now once we're done with this, we can come on to the second thing. What was the second thing? Second thing was the banner side of the equation, right? So the banner is pretty simple. So we're going to select the class, banner class. We've learned that we selected by our dot and then curly braces. The position needs to be absolute. It should not really reflect any sort of like relativeness. Then we can give it a top, which is the margin from the top, the distance from the top. It needs to be 35%. It's up to you guys, but I chose 35%. There should be no distance from the left, and then the color needs to be white. And once we have this, this is what we get, okay? And now we also have to select one more thing. Now we have to also select the app text. Now we're going to start styling the app text. Now, once we start styling the app text, we want to give it a padding of left, and we're going to make it a little bit of centered 440 pixels. And now it's kind of like in the center, okay? Now we're going to select this property, which is the H3. This is what the heading is. Oh, sorry, it's the H1 actually. So we can actually use this to figure this out, okay? So dot app text, okay, H1. We're good with this, and then we're going to go with dot app text H3, okay. And for H3, for H1, we can do the color white. Okay, we can have a much bigger font size. We can have the font size of like 80 pixels, right? We can have the position needs to be relative so that whenever we remove, sort of like reduce the size, we know how we need it to, the size needs to be smaller as well. The color is white. We need to give it a margin from the top. The margin from the top can be 30 pixels. And then the font can be a little bit heavier, a little bit bolder, I guess. And the line height, which is the property of how much distance from the top it needs to have, it needs to be 1.3, I guess. So now we have this much bigger sort of a sense. We're getting closer. And then what we have to do is we have to select this high tag, right? So that tag was basically banner app H1 and then the span tag, okay? So we're going to remove this for now. We're going to select this. And we're going to remove this, and from this H1, we're going to select the span tag, and we're just going to give it a color of about, reddish sort of a color. This is the color. And now we have a very similar thing. Okay. And then whenever you press resume, you create a new class with the code and copy the same. I'll get to the questions in the end, Ayman, so then we can actually get onto it. So now we also have to style this part. So this part is basically .app text, and it's the p tag. Okay. So the p tag, the font size needs to be a little bit smaller. We can give it a margin. We can give it a margin from the top. We can give it a margin from the bottom, and then no margin on the other side. We can give it letter spacing. There's so many things that we can give it. Not a big deal, but I have it prepared, so I'm going to just style it as I like. This is the beauty of CSS. You can style it as you like, okay? And we're going to give it a line height of about 1.5. And letter spacing needs to be 3 pixels. Okay, so now we have something like this. Okay, so this is what the p tag is going to look like. So this is the p tag. Is this the p tag? I think the p tag needs to be this. How about we change it to p tag? Then we can see what the effect is. Nothing really changes. So I'm not going to change this. I'm going to keep it as span. So once we're done with this part, then we come on to the button group. Okay, so now we're done with the app text part, which was this. And now let's move on to the button group. So now we're going to select the button group again. Okay, we're going to give it a display of flex because we want everything to be left to right. The width needs to be 100%. The position needs to be relative. And the margin from the top needs to be about 20 pixels. And now we're good to go. This is now a little bit of distance on the top from here. And now we want to choose the primary button. And this is the primary button. And we want to add something. Okay, we want to add something before it. So we use the pseudo property of before. This adds something behind this button. So we go here. What do we want? At the back, the content needs to be empty because we'll be adding like a really big line. Okay, sorry. Here, the position needs to be absolute because we want that to stick there, right? The width needs to be 400 pixels because this is 440. This distance is 440. So we want something that starts from here, goes till here. So, and we want the height to be 1 pixel because this is just a line that we're adding. This is what we're adding right now. Okay. And then you have border top. We give it like 1 pixel. It's the solid and the color is white. And the top distance is going to be 88%. You can have whatever you want. And from the left, we have no distance at all. And this is the line that we usually get. Okay, I think we're almost there. We're almost there. And then you have the play button. The play button needs to have the display is equals to flex. Then the items are all centered out. And then we also have a transition, which is kind of like all 0.3 seconds. That's okay. And within the play button, we're going to select the hover part. We're going to select the icon and we're going to select the span. So how do we do that? So we're going to play button hover. And we are also going to select, dot play button inner, and we're going to select the icon. And then we are also going to select play button hover, and we're also going to select span. So this is how we select two multiple properties at the same time. The color needs to be this. The transition property, if you want to add, you can add. If you don't want to add, you cannot add. It's completely up to you. And the border color also needs to be the same. So now we have something like, we are clicking on this. This is what is happening. Okay. So now we're just going to quickly do 2 stylings more, and then we'll move on to the last part. We're almost like 90% done. So now we have to select from the button group, we have to select the span. Okay, so this is the watch intro part. So now we're going to give it a font size of 20 pixels. We're going to give it a margin left. We're going to give it a gap from the left side of about 24 pixels. Then you have the color. The color should be white. because it's up on a black background, and then the cursor needs to be pointer. And I think now we're going to have that, right? Makes sense. And now quickly we have to select this icon. This icon is basically the button group on the inner side. And now we select the I tag. I tag is the icon tag. The color needs to be white. Font size determines the size of the icon. Okay. The display needs to be inline block because we really want it to be like this. Let's give it a width of about 80 pixels. Height of about 80 pixels as well, because it needs to be a square, right? So slowly and steadily taking shape. There's no border that we have given it. You can give it a distance from the left side, I think 0.25 rem. Rem and there's another sort of like a unit. And we can actually give it a border color. We can give it a border, which is going to be 1 pixel solid, and it can be white. Okay. And we can make it, because right now, if you look at it, it's going to be, wait. So right now we have this, we can have the transition property later on. Okay. So we can have this border property, then we have the cursor, we can make it pointer. We can justify the content from left to right into the center, and we can also align the items into the center as well. I think this is more than enough. We can also add a transition property. Okay, so the border color needs to change. And we can change the border color by 0.3 seconds. And we can add a little bit of like ease out effect. Okay, so this works for us. There's one thing that is left that we have to fix is the WebKit transition property. Okay, not transform, transition property. This is another way of adding the transition. Okay, so border color 0.3 seconds. I don't think we need that. I think I just made it complicated for myself. I think I'm going to let this one go. Okay, so what else do we have? So we have the color. So we have the button, play button inner. Okay, sorry. So play button inner. So this is wrong. This is why it's not working. Play button. Okay, now this works. Now it's a square. We have to bring this into the center as well, and we have to make it round. So how do we do that? We add the border radius and we make it 50%, and now it's going to convert into a round thingy. Okay, now we have to bring that icon into the center. So we had the align item and the justify item in the center. Okay, so what we can do is we can just simply change this inline block into flex, and everything will be centered out as well. Okay, so now I think we're almost there. This works for us. The last part is the social icons on the other side. So we have social icons. We're almost done. The position needs to be, I think it needs to be relative. It needs to stay at the bottom. And the distance between the right should be 50 pixels. And then you have bottom, which is 2%. And I think this is more than good enough, okay? And then in the social icons, we'll simply select two things, right? So we're going to select this class. We're going to select the unordered list, and each list item, we'll give it a width of about 50 pixels. We're going to give it a height of about 50 pixels. And we're also going to give it a display of, I think, let's call it inline block. We just want it to be on top of each other, right? So now it's showing up, and that is good. Okay, so now what we have to select is the social icons, and we have to select the UL, the LI, and the A tags, in which it's the icons and everything, which is the link part. Okay, so we're going to make it display. It's going to be block. We're going to give it a color of, I think, let's try to give it a color of white. Okay, so once we're done with this, so now we have the white color. Okay, so let's also align the text to center, although we don't really need that. We're going to give it a padding of about 12 pixels. Let's give it a padding of 15 pixels. No, nothing is shown. Wait, you'll see the change, right? You'll see the change in a few minutes. Font size needs to be 20 pixels. Font weight needs to be a little bit bold. Let's make it 700. The border radius is, we don't want it to be completely circle, but we want really smooth edges. So we're going to give it a border radius of about 10 pixels. I think 10 pixels looks okay. The cursor needs to be a pointer, and that's it. And the final thing that we have to select is when we put our cursor on top of this, okay? So once we put our cursor on top of this, we just have to copy this. And we just have to select the hover property, okay? And we just need the background color. We need the background color to change to white. And we need the color, oh, sorry. We need the background color to change to red. Oopsie, where's the red color? Here's the red color. We'll copy this. We want the background color to be this, and the color needs to be white. So now once I click on this, this is what we get. And I think we're done, right? What else is left? I think there are a few things that needs to be fixed. What we can do is we can actually fix this. This isn't fixed yet. So we can go to the home property. So where is home? So let's go try to find the home part. Where's the home part? So this is the menu side, okay? So where do we have the menu? Okay, so in the menu, we need to find margin left, okay? So okay, so that's simple. We just simply select the menu and we select the unordered list, and we just give it a margin from the left side of about, 190 pixels. And now we can see this is separate. And we're done. Oh, that was a very, very fast speed code, I guess. Okay. How did you guys find it? I know it was just a little bit faster, a little bit complicated. Usually in our lectures, we try to go as slow as we can, but this was kind of like, speed coding or coding on steroids, I guess. But we're done with this. So in just about 200 lines of code, we're done with this. We have built our small little portfolio that we can share with our friends and, make them jealous of our abilities to code. Right. Any question, guys?
Yeah, we've had a lot of questions in the chat. So if you guys want to ask any more questions, you can also add them in the chat, either to me or directly to Raheel, and he'll answer them.
Okay. Okay.
But I think
so
for
let's
now,
go one by one.
I think for now we're just gonna do a general Q&A. So if anyone has any questions about the website or just for any of these three speakers who join us today, let me stop the website share though.
Yeah.
There we go.
Good to go. Just let me know if you have any questions about this. Just connect with me on LinkedIn. Ask me questions. I don't mind. Happy to help.
Yeah. So by the way, we also have all three of their LinkedIn, their contact information. We'll send them out in an email if you guys want to ask them any questions directly or network with them or contact with them. So now we're just gonna have a quick Q&A to close up the night for everyone. All right, let's see. Krishnan, you're still here, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
So I'll make Krishnan the host and he'll be moderating our Q&A today. Great. Hopefully you got the royal scepter from me.
So, hey everyone, my name is Krishnan Tolkapian and I'm the Vice President at Code for Tomorrow, and I'll be moderating the Q&A session for this event. So as Josh said, if you have any questions you'd like to ask our friends at DevNation, feel free to DM me, and your identity will be kept anonymous when you ask these questions. Moving on. I'm not sure if Mudassar and Raheel remember, but they're both judges at a virtual pitch competition for South Brunswick High School in New Jersey a few months back. I was at that competition. But anyway, that leads me into my first question. What advice would you give to upcoming entrepreneurs who want to successfully establish their own businesses?
Mudassar, do you want to start? Because it's a very broad question.
Yeah, it's a broad question. I feel like entrepreneurship on a very high level is just about finding a problem and then solving it. That's all. So it means if you see something wrong or like in your neighborhood or around in your community, right? And then you want to change that for the better, then like you can just do that. And that is entrepreneurship. It can be for profit or for just an NGO or something else, right? But that is entrepreneurship. So think about problems and then think about how you can solve it. Sometimes you won't have all the skill set you need at hand, but that's okay. So meet people, get people on the board, right? And then solve that issue. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
adding on to
fine.
what Mudassir said, I think for young people, because I think we also had this issue of finding the problem to work on, right? So there's so many different problems. How do you decide what problem to work on, right? So I think the best way for someone to get started with something is to find that something that they care about. So if I have a problem, I should devise a solution for it, and then try to see if someone else has the problem as well. So if I care about the problem to a certain extent, it will be very easier for me to devise a solution or come up with a smart solution that solves the problem. So I think the number one key is to find a problem that you care about, that you really want to solve, and then dive deeper into that problem, that whether you have the skill set to solve that problem, or are you passionate enough to solve that problem, or what bigger impact is. But the first part is finding something to solve that you really, really care about.
Yeah, like starting with your own problems is the best way, is the easiest way, because you know that problem from inside out.
Yeah.
So it means, and then you will know if your solution will solve that issue for you or not, right? And then I'm pretty sure if you can solve your problems, then you can also find other people with the similar situation, with the similar problems, and then, yep, that's a business in the end, because people pay other people to solve their issues.
Real quick, I had a follow-up question to that. So when you're coming up with ideas for possibly solving a problem that you are passionate about, you have to also make sure that solution is unique and that it does actually solve the problem. Do you have any steps to go about making sure your solution is viable?
Yeah. So like the solution can be unique or not unique, it doesn't matter, because it can have AI or blockchain, doesn't matter, right? So, and then how do we find out if that solution actually solves a problem or not? The only way is just to launch that solution and then get feedback, because that is the only way, right? You might have an assumption or something that you think will work, but it will only work if people say it works, right? So find find people with the same problem and then just share with them your solution, and then they will tell you the answer, yes or no. That's pretty straightforward, I would say.
Yeah, so just adding on to what Mudassir said, there's this website called startupschool.org. So I would highly suggest if you ever want to learn the basics of entrepreneurship, it's run by YC. You should definitely join this because it's free to join, and they run these workshops where they actually tell you how to think about the business. So adding on to what Mudassir said, that it doesn't really, you don't think about the solution at the first place. You think about the problem first and how you can effectively solve it. And then comes the viability of the business once you start dwelling into it. But if you're able to solve the problem at the first place and you find a group of people, a large group of people that care about the problem, then you have a much larger business. So I think number one part is understand the problem very carefully and then devise experiments to test whether your solution adds value or not, and find the solution that adds the value, and then you'll be able to find the viability of it, run some analysis, see if people pay for it and how many people pay for it, or how many people have that sort of problem. So all that market sizing analysis is kind of like multiple different topics that you need to dive deeper into. And I think check out this website. You'll be able to get more and more information on this.
All right, so I have a question for Hamd, because he's actually kind of had the similar problem as I've had of kind of trying to figure out what that passion is of what he was doing. As I know that he started out as a biology major, and then he kind of turned to still part of biology, but taking more of a data science aspect to it. Like I myself, I'm kind of struggling between, am I going to computer science or something completely different completely? So Hamd, do you have any advice to me and people like me out there about how to diagnose, for lack of a better word? And I shouldn't use that word, but how to diagnose what your passion is.
There's one thing, like just like Rahil mentioned before, you don't know what you like, but after you try something, you definitely know what you don't like. So that's like one way of trying to solve a problem and trying to see what you like, what you don't like. But that doesn't mean that like once you pick a certain domain or a path, you can't go back to the previous thing that you were working on. So like if I can definitely go and do something in healthcare or biotech later on in life, it's totally open for me. It's not a closed door. So that's one thing. Just like an advice, like once you're switching to a different domain, that doesn't mean that you say goodbye, tada, bye bye to the previous domain as well. Like we're organisms, we're learning, and I'll tell you that like when I came to university, I took biology. I was evolving, right? Because I was what, 18, 19 years old. And you're just a kid at that point, and you're evolving as a person, your personality traits, you're trying to understand what are your best traits, where do you do your best, where are you not at your best. And then again, if it aligns a lot with you, you switch careers, you switch your domain, you switch what you want. I think it's a conversation more about you looking into yourself and doing some self-reflection as compared to looking at, what if I change the careers, and how it'll go about in society, because people normally stick to one career, and it's like kind of looked down upon if you switch careers. It's a fear between people, among people. I think is at the end of the day, that's just noise. You just have to see what you want, and that's the only thing that keeps you going, because you are surrounded sometimes with people, and sometimes you're not, but you're always with yourself. So that should be the voice that should be counted on. Yeah.
Yeah,
I had a
just
question.
like add on one more thing, like to what Ham said, like in college, like I feel like in the US, like you have an option. You try different stuff like 2 years and then you pick something as your major. So yeah, so that is also a time in your life when you can like try different stuff out to see what you like more, right? And then you're gonna pursue a degree in. That is also one way.
And whatever
like
you
I
do, just learn how to code. You can do
Yeah,
biology, whatever you want to do, just make sure that you learn how to code.
like I've known people at NYU who were graduate students, and they worked 10 years in the industry in something else, and they just attended graduate school at like 35 years old. They just wanted to switch into a different career, and that doesn't mean it's a step back. That just means that now you want to do with your life, like now you want to do this with your life, whatever you're up for. So yeah, like it's more about you, less about how you are in the society or in the professional world. I've seen people with no technical background become chairs of technical roles. Why? Because they later on learned and they grasped. Like Rahil has a business and marketing background, but now he's coding in front of you. He's leading one of the courses in the front end development. So he didn't like learn code. Like he came as a computer science major, but then he switched to business and marketing. So that's like right in front of you, an example. So just because you have a certain degree does not limit you to a certain role at an organization, at a company, because when it comes down to it, it's more about what value can you provide to that company. And the more experienced people, they know that, after a certain point, your hard skills get a little bit outdated, and the soft skills and the skills that actually matter is like the enthusiasm, trying to make change, trying to follow a system of like these are things that anyone in any domain should be having. How to build a system, how to build operations of your own work life, how to be a proactive, how to not be lazy. These are all things that everyone in their field should be common to. And this is like the backbone of consulting. Like I came in, I didn't have software engineering experience at all. I was a data science background, and I learned software engineering on the job, right? So this is what you would need to have, like the adaptability. And if especially if you're going for entrepreneurship, like if you're building a startup, you have to do everything. I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know anything about partnerships. Didn't know anything about sales and operations even. I just knew data science. Now I'm part of the startup. I'm doing everything. I'm trying to work on marketing, social media marketing, and all of that. Building posts, building content, doing operations, handling all the partnership meetings, signing all these agreements with these companies. I've never been exposed to that. So you have to have that like desire to learn things fast. And if you have that, you can go into any domain and succeed, and you can come back to the same domains. It's not fixed, that once you set the two in one path, you can't go back.
I had a question. So what made you guys take that leap of faith while starting DevNation, and how did you know it was the right time to start a company?
I don't know. I think, I think like Mudassir and I mentioned, that we do come from some sort of like entrepreneurial background, and we do some sort of have a history of being rebellious in nature. And that is not something new. That has been always the case. So I think that's kind of like part of the upbringing that we have. But there's never a right time to it. It's more about how you look at the opportunities, right? So, for example, if you were looking at COVID, when COVID hit, and you were like, "Oh shit, my life is over," uh, that's kind of like one way to look at it. But there were certain people who were like, "Oh, okay, so now people are moving remote. What can I build to facilitate that sort of transition?" Right? And that was kind of like the right time to work on, for example, online education, because people are now stuck at home, and that is why Zoom got so boosted up in its stock. So all of a sudden, Zoom became the hottest stock, and Zoom just solved a really important. Even right now, we're not offline, we're not physical, we're online, connecting from multiple different parts of the world, and that is magical, right? And that is just so powerful. And that is when you decide that this is the right time to work for it. Personally speaking, I think when you find something meaningful, you already have an idea that you want to start working on it. But it's more about thinking, giving it a thought, but really deciding that. So I actually was. I think you can relate to this. So I was listening to one of the speeches by Jeff Bezos in the morning, right? So, and he talked about when he was deciding to work on Amazon, he looked at, his boss asked him to like do some sort of analysis and something, but he said that when I'll be 80 and I'm going to look back at this decision, what will I regret or not? So he says that I like to come up with this framework where I minimize the number of regrets that I have. So if it's the right time or not the right time, I don't know. But will you regret not making this decision when you're 80 is something that you can ask yourself, or project yourself into the future and see if you're making this sort of like decision, whether or not it makes sense.
Yeah, I would add to that by saying that there's a more quantifiable way to see if it's the right time to build a company. It's everybody has like a lot of ideas that they want to pursue, but they never get the right push, the right moment. A lot of fears, a lot of it just doesn't get into place. So I think the right time would be that if you see that there's a need for whatever you're trying to solve that is exactly being like evolving, and then you have people around you who are also passionate about that, and they are like they're free, they have time, and if you have time, so it just gets like little by little. Like Mudassir and Raheel, they had this vision. uh, I also was very much bored of my work as a consultant because it lacked value. I worked there 2 years, and 2 years was a good time. So now I thought, okay, maybe I should look for something else. And then I connected with these guys, and then I realized that okay, these guys are also passionate, and they are also have some time on their hands. I also can make time out, and just step by step. When you start doing things, it's not forceful. You don't force it. It just falls into place. Then it's when then this is the right time to shift into entrepreneurship, like build the startup. But it has to come from within the push. I think like Rahil said, like the regret thing, let the fears go. Just take the first step. It's the hardest step. And once you do that, then you can delay things according to your schedule. You can say, okay, maybe I took the first step today. 3 months later, you can say, okay, let's wait a little bit, work a little bit, and then can resume it like three months later. But you have to be aligned with some other people. It's not a one-man show. No matter how good you are, you will always be beaten by a group of people who are doing the same thing. So you need people in this domain. You need people who can support you. You need people who can work with you and can resonate with you. You can't do it all alone. So I think these are a lot of like small things that you can see, and then it kind of just like the fog just clears, and you can kind of see that it's happening. And that's when when you have this, the fear goes away. To be honest, it goes away automatically, and that's when it's the right time to move into it. Yeah. Jesse, you want to add something?
Yeah, it's like there are like so much you can talk about on this subject. I feel like we can talk about all these things, but like people might have some really hard time understanding it. So I would say it's like try it out, right? And then you will eventually fail for the first few times, but that is the only way to learn what skills you need to become a really good entrepreneur. So if you want to start entrepreneurship, just do it. And then you will fail, it's fine, but then you will learn. And then you will also gather data along the way, whether it's a right time or not. And then you can always like switch between jobs or entrepreneurship. There's no hard and fast rule like, now I'm an entrepreneur, and so there's no going back to job. That's not how things work. Life is like flexible, like try things out. If it's fine, go to job. But I know for a fact that once you are in entrepreneurship, like it's really, really hard to leave. Like there's no way back.
Yeah, you don't want to leave. You actually, once you're doing that, you don't want to go
There's
and work
no,
for someone. Yeah, the
yeah,
feeling
it's
you
a, it's
get.
a, yeah, it's a drug.
Yeah.
Have a drug.
Okay.
Not kind of like a
No,
bad one. Stay away
not
from drugs,
yeah,
guys.
yeah. No, but I would like to add, I think the fear, I think fear-based decisions are always like regretted. Like once you make fear-based decisions, nothing good comes out of them. So if you're trying to jump at an opportunity just because you're fearful that someone else might beat you to it, that's not a good decision. And if you're like trying to stop your company or stop your like project that you're working on because of the fear that, oh, I have a job, I should be working there, then that's a fear-based decision. And more or less it'll leave you like in pain, regretful, and then go and the boss will be like, hey man, what's this, go, where's the work, do these spreadsheets, and I'm like, you kind of don't want to do it because your mind's somewhere else. So that's I think you have it's a road that only brave people can take. So I think everybody's brave. You have to clear yourself. So that's something. Yeah, don't do anything based on fear. Don't make decisions based on fear. I would say if you get fearful about something, take a step back, think about it, reflect on it, and then see the importance of it, or the like. If you do something wrong, what's the impact of it in your life as a whole? Like down the road, it's going to be a small thing. Oh, what if I do this entrepreneurial project? I might get a B in a course, and my life will be ruined. I won't get into my college, right? So that's, if you look at 10 years from now or 15 years from now, that's a laughable moment. It's
But
not a
at
big
the
deal.
same time, Hamd, I would say that the idea about risk mitigation is actually true as well. I mean,
Yeah,
if you're in, I
definitely.
mean, if you're in college, the best thing for you to do is to ace your grades.
Yeah, that's true.
You need to be on top of whatever you do. If you're in college, you need to get the top grades. All right, you need to attend the top universities. You need to be around top people to actually increase your chances of success,
Exactly.
I think. So I think,
And I think that decision should be calculated. It should be calculated logically instead of fear. Okay.
I mean,
Oh,
if you're when
yeah.
you're 18, this level of
The hormones are
calculations are,
high. Yeah, I
it's not
know.
about the hormones about it, but it's also the level
And
of logical thinking that you can do is not too
I think-
powerful. So I think it comes with experience. But I agree with about 75% of what you said.
Thank you for that validation. Okay,
Okay,
no, I'm
Okay,
uh,
sure.
go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hate to cut this off because we are a little bit off of time. I think we said we'd stop
Great.
about like 10 minutes ago, but thank you to everyone, especially our 3 guests today for coming on with us, and our all our participants who stayed through the end. I hope you actually learned something, even either if it's about creating a website or even if it's not about that, just take something away from the lessons that these guys have taught you and these experiences that they've taught you. I love the fact that Maisha learned so much today. So that's great. Yep. So just to wrap this up, we'll be sending you guys an email. That email will have the recording, as well as I think Raheel wants to share his code for his website if anyone wants to see and adapt off of that. That would be great.
Yeah, I'm going to upload it on GitHub, and then you can actually just use it from GitHub.
Oh, he just wants his stars to increase on GitHub.
No.
Comment.
Yeah, if you can
Everyone's
increase the
stars
stars, do
Yeah,
that. As well.
If you want to send it on GitHub, you can do that too. Just
Yeah.
send one of us a link so we can send an email to everyone, because we've
Yeah.
had some people ask about that.
Yeah, I think
And
GitHub is
but
better.
also send you guys a survey, see if we can improve as we do future events with maybe these speakers again, as well as other speakers.
Well, always ready. Yeah, no worries at
Thank you
all.
so
Just
much.
reach out to us. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and we'll also have their contact information if you guys want to ask them any questions or reach out to them.
Definitely. Yeah.
Any projects that you guys want to talk about. So with that, I'll stop the recording.